I'll be the first to admit that I always struggled to welcome the messy into my life, to be okay with messy, to embrace the messy and to sit in it. I always wanted to be in control, to have structure, to feel like things were perfect and that they fit in this box that I thought I needed my life to look like. But recently, I've really welcomed in the messy and embraced the messy, especially on this past month in Bali. And it has provided this sense of freedom and just clarity and allowed me to drop this weight that I've been carrying my whole life. And it's allowed me to see, quote, messy in life from a whole new light. And that is what I'm going to talk about in today's episode, embracing the messy and how it's really transformed my life. So if you struggle to embrace the messy, to welcome in that lack of structure, that imperfection, to feel okay with messy in your life, this episode is for you. But before we dive in, if you're not already, press follow wherever you are listening to Fulfilled for weekly episodes of personal stories, inspiration to make you feel less alone on your journey and truly live this life fully. All right, let's get to it. So one of the studios that I was going to a lot in Bali, the reason that I kept going back to that same studio is they embodied this message that spirituality and life is about embracing life fully. And what that means is the good and the bad, the light and the shadows, the messy and the clean, right? All of it. And often in the spiritual approach or just in kind of the extreme version of our society today, we want to only fill it with things that feel good. We want to keep everything light and happy and good and in flow. We don't want the messy. We don't want the hard. We don't want the uncomfortable. And the reason I loved this approach so much is because it gives us permission to invite all of it in, to open our arms to the messy, to not feel like to have a life that's going in the right direction. Maybe that's a spiritual life. Maybe that's just a life that feels successful to you. It doesn't mean that we can't welcome the messy. It doesn't mean that it needs to be perfect. In fact, it's the opposite. If we push away the messy and things that we put in the quote bad box, then we're not living this life fully. We're not embracing it all. We're not having the full life experience. We're living in this box that we think is okay. We're trying to control our life to make it look a certain way that we can feel okay with, have experiences that align with the idea of what we want our life to be. And that messiness, that doesn't fit in the box. Why would we welcome that in? And I had the same thought for always. But I've started to unlearn that. And I've started to, again, see messy in a new light because I've started to welcome it in. So I'll share a little bit about that. Okay, specific ways I've embraced the messy, right? Specifically in Bali, just in this recent travel. So normally when I would go to a restaurant, I would try to really order the perfect thing, kind of sit at this like perfect table. Like I wanted to have this experience that matched the one in my mind, that felt perfect and that felt orderly and like I was in control in a way. And I didn't want them to mess up my order. And I didn't want to be at that table that had a draft and that wasn't looking at the view. And ultimately, I tried to have control so that the experience felt perfect. But when I would go out to eat out in Bali, I would practice letting go of the reins and practice embracing the messy of any of it, right? Like they messed up part of my order. That's okay. I will eat this. Or okay, I'm starving, but I have to wait 30 or 45 minutes to sit down. That's okay. I will go somewhere else or I will wait. Like accepting the messiness of it and not leaning into that urge to control. Or another one was I really leaned into not having structure in my days there. Like normally I would like to know what I'm doing in the day and I want to fill it with things to make sure that I had enough to do, that I was making the most of my time. And instead, I took a step back and let whatever naturally came up come up. Whatever I naturally felt like doing, go with that. And yeah, it felt more messy. It felt like I wasn't fully in control because I just had to go with the flow of what was and accept that messiness and that flow in. Or another one that's honestly coming to mind is like when it started downpouring because rainy season was starting there, instead of like running to shelter or feeling like I can't go outside, I'm like, all right, I'm going to kind of embrace this and just like be wet and accept the rain and lean into that messy, not feeling like I need to be perfectly clean and dry and all that. And it felt freeing. And all of these ways of letting go and embracing the messy has really opened my eyes to a lot of things and has helped me unlearn a lot of old ways. Every time that I welcomed in something that the old me wanted to fix or change or control, it would prove to me that life doesn't need to fit in this perfect box or look a certain way for me to have a good experience and for me to feel at peace and okay. I've realized that for so long I was trying to avoid any uncertainty or messy or anything that I put in the bad box to get rid of that in my life and to make my life keep that structure and that perfect element and be super healthy and pure and organized and structured. I was not welcoming in any messy. And what that did was it was like training myself to always try to fix things or control things in a way where that structure was there, that perfection was there. But every time that I welcomed in the messy on this trip, more often than not, I opened myself to a new experience that I wouldn't have before. I opened myself up to meeting new people I wouldn't have before. I just took a step back from needing to be in control and I welcomed in what naturally came. And it actually showed me, it's not like I needed this experience to look a certain way to have a wonderful experience. In fact, that experience that maybe was a little more messy and spontaneous that came naturally often was even the better experience. But I had to welcome in the messy and accept that, to see that and to understand that. And so every time that I leaned into it, I started to unlearn my old ways of needing to be in control and needing to get rid of any messy or fix it. And I think what feels uncomfortable and a bit intimidating about the messy sometimes is we're not in control and there is uncertainty there. We don't know how that's going to turn out because it's so messy and we feel like we need to change it and fix it and get back in line with what our lives need to look like and what this experience should be. But the reality is when we take a step back is life is not perfect. Life is very messy. And every time that we welcome in that messy, every time that we lean into it, sit in it, feel a little uncomfortable in it, we're training that part of ourselves that is going to be okay no matter how messy life gets. We don't need life to look a certain way to feel happy, to feel okay, to feel at peace. We can feel that way in the messy. But we don't realize that unless we welcome it in and until we welcome it in. And so I think of like the start of the month that I spent in Bali, like still trying to really control everything and having more of that tunnel vision closed mindset to when I left, I was so much more open to the messy. And it's because every time that I noticed that need to control come up, I took a step back and softened and welcomed it in instead. And I was proving to myself that I can have the messy and still be very happy and have such a wonderful experience. But beyond that, and more importantly, actually, is we're not fully living life unless we're inviting in the messy, unless we're embracing and leaning into the messy. We're only living a curated fraction of life if we're foregoing the rest of it. Let's stick with this restaurant food example, right? Because that's one that I always get trapped in a lot. I always want to eat perfectly clean and feel like I'm putting in really pure and healthy things into my body, that sometimes I can go to an extreme and be like, I need to control exactly what I'm ordering at the restaurant and have this experience that fits in this box of quote healthy. And anything outside of that felt messy, felt out of my control. It felt uncomfortable. But I've leaned into welcoming that in and being okay with it. Again, it's a constant learning. I'm not perfect here, but it's this idea, right? That I'm foregoing trying these amazing foods if I only think that I can eat these select couple things on the menu. Or, okay, I know I liked that restaurant. Maybe I go back there because that feels like the safe and comfortable option. But maybe we just be spontaneous and go to that one across the street that looks actually interesting. And look, there's a table right there. Let's just do that and see what happens. Yes, that feels messier a little bit, but that is fully experiencing life. It's leaning into what's natural. It's embracing all of life, like that meditation was sharing, the good and the bad, the light and the dark, right? The messy and the structured, what feels comfortable and good and what feels uncomfortable. That is what a full and fulfilling life experience looks like. Quick little interruption here. If you notice yourself struggling to embrace the messy and you notice that it might be keeping you stuck where you are in that same pattern of always needing to be in control, I am now offering one-on-one life fulfillment coaching. And if this is something that you want to explore, if this is something you feel called to connecting with me on, check out my website linked below. Get a free session booked with me to open your eyes to all of the amazing changes and possibilities that you can incorporate into your life. I would love to learn more about your life and your journey and support you along the way. Okay, let's get back to the episode. So maybe you find that food example a little bit silly, and maybe there's one that's more top of mind for you, where you notice yourself always having that urge to step up and control something because anything else would feel messy, anything else would feel out of control and uncertain. That's our sign to take a step back and welcome in the messy a little bit, because that means experiencing life fully. Think of all the experiences that come to mind that maybe you said no to, or maybe that you didn't take and didn't have because they felt too messy, because they felt like they were too far outside of that box that you thought your life had to look like. Maybe it is going on that trip, because whenever we travel, right, we do have to welcome in more of the messy. We're not in our home where we can control everything and have our perfect morning and evening routine and keep that clean diet. It is more messy. But if we forego travel overall, just because it takes us out of our comfort zone and feels a bit uncomfortable and scary, that means that we're not living life fully. We're not embracing these new cultures and having these new perspectives. And that's a perfect example of how embracing the messy means living life fully. It's like relationships. Those are messy too, right? But does that mean that we're not going to establish these connections with people just because they might get messy at some point, right? Or they might not perfectly align with all my values and we might butt heads on certain things, but we want relationships in our life. The messiness makes them beautiful and teaches us and adds color and joy and love to our life. And love sometimes is messy, but that's a beautiful thing. I could go on and on about all of the ways that we need messiness in our lives. Messiness is now something I see as a positive thing, something to embrace and something to welcome, not something to resist, not something to shove down and try to control instead. It's the moments in life and the aspects of our life that might feel messy because of that uncertainty and because of that unfamiliarity where the most beautiful things come up in our life. The most spontaneous encounters, the experiences we didn't know we needed until we open ourselves up to them. So know that if life feels messy, that might just be a positive sign that you're living your life fully. And if messy is something you're always avoiding, know that the messy is good. The messy is beautiful, and it's embracing the messy that we can truly live this life fully. So I hope something in today's episode resonated with you. If it did, again, don't forget to press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening to Fulfilled, and I'll see you all again soon on your journeys to living this life fully.